Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. Good morning. Let's get in some front page news. Where we starting, Yee?
Well, let's start with Andrew Brown Jr. If you guys recall, he was fatally shot in North Carolina while police were trying to execute a warrant. He was in his car, and we have not seen this body and dash camera footage yet, even though the family and the attorneys for Andrew Brown Jr.'s family are asking for that to be released. But the attorneys and family members, some of the family members have been able to see what this footage looks like, so they're breaking down what's on that footage. Now, attorney Chase Lynch is talking about the first thing he saw with Andrew Brown Jr.'s hands being visible the whole time.
We were able to see Mr. Brown sitting in his vehicle as he was ambushed. At all times, his hands were visible. At all times, you could see that he was not a threat. There was a shot fired. When the shot was fired, he put the car in reverse, putting several feet, if not yards, away from the police who were there. At no point did we ever see any police officers behind his vehicle. At no point did we ever see Mr. Brown make contact with law enforcement.
Now, that's important because the district attorney, Andrew Womble, is saying that officers fired when Brown was driving the car moving toward them and that the car made contact with officers at least 2 times before shots were fired. So that's why that's super important to understand. Attorney Chase Lynch also talked about the number of shots that these cops fired.
There was a group of law enforcement that were in front of him. He went the opposite direction. As he turned to the left to go across his yard, a second shot was fired, and as he began to accelerate, his car was clearly across the yard. At all times, what we saw were police officers standing on the pavement unloading their weapons. There were so many shots that we found difficulty in counting the number of shots that his vehicle received.
Now, Bakari Sellers and other attorneys for the family wants the DA to recuse himself from this case because clearly these police officers, the sheriff's office has been working very closely with the DA, and he feels like there's a conflict.
The only people in this matter who would be disadvantaged if he stays on this case are our clients, this family. If Andrew Womble was to recuse himself, there would be no prejudice to the officers in this case. In fact, we would be sure that justice could be carried out without the taint of impropriety. The fact that he will not do that shows that he has some other interest.
Salute to my good brother, my South Carolina brethren, Bakari Sellers. And here's the thing, attorneys are telling the truth in this case because if they weren't, the police department would have just released the whole video. It's the reason they aren't putting out the whole video because it would just be more evidence that this is the problem with police officers and their interactions with black people. This is how they treat us. It's always shoot first, ask questions later. Fatal force is the only force they know how to use against us because this is the only force they've always used against us in order to control us since the time we got here off them damn slave ships.
I'm just curious what video the district attorney, Andrew Womble, saw that his account of what happened is so different than what everybody else saw.
He probably saw the same exact video, but he's very clear about what team he played for.
They need to release the video.
They won't.
All right, now Republicans in the Texas House have passed a bill yesterday that bans public school teachers from talking about racism, white supremacy, or current news events. The bill is being fast-tracked for the governor, Greg Abbott, to sign into law. So that means social studies and civics teachers aren't allowed to discuss that one race or sex is inherently superior to another race or sex, or the idea that an individual, by virtue of the individual's race or sex, bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex.
How do we feel about that? In one way, I always feel like, the biggest things that can always cause arguments are discussions about religion, discussions about politics, or, to who's the greatest rapper of all time, right? Those are the things that cause a lot of arguments. So how do we feel about that in school? Do we need those discussions in school?
I think you got to talk about history, and racism is a big part of history. How do you discuss history in the United States without discussing it?
Yeah, you got to be able to talk about history and everything that went on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't even. Okay, it's controversial, but it happened.
But you want them to discuss
It's facts.
You want them to discuss real history, right? And the fact that we're even having a debate about what is real history nowadays is nuts to me. The fact that things like the 1619 Project can exist and people would be like, "Well, that's not how it happened. That wasn't accurate. We shouldn't discuss that." Like it's just strange. So it's like if nobody can come to get on one page about what the truth is. Should they discuss it at all? Is there other things they could be talking about in school?
They also said teachers don't have to take any professional training like cultural proficiency and equity training if it makes them feel any type of discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any type of psychological distress.
Okay, now what about this, right? Envy, you always talk about how, they don't teach things like business in school, right? So what if all of the stuff about history in the past we taught our kids at home and they focused on the future in school, just discussing what they need to be productive citizens in the future?
I think they need both. I think you need to know where you came from to know where you're going, but I also think they need to teach those things that I always say: business, economics, taxes, stocks and bonds, real estate. I think
It's
they
like
need to
taking a
teach all those
math
things.
class when you take, accounting.
Yeah, but I just think when you're a black kid, you can never rely on white teachers to teach you real history. Not saying that there's not white teachers who do, because there are some who actually teach the real history of America, but majority, I really doubt it.
Well, I think parents who teach their kids at home are going to continue to do that anyway.
Absolutely.
Whether or not it's,
Yeah, but there's so much history. So I mean, that's one of the benefits of going to Hampton University. You have to take African American studies for I think 2 semesters, and they teach you about your history. Like, you have to. It's not like, I don't want to take that class. No, this is a requirement. So I think that's one of the best things about going to HBCU.
No, I agree. That's how it was for me at South Carolina State. I got my doctorate. So when I was there,
Don't shut up, man.
What? They teach us about black history. What's wrong with you?
All right, but that is your front page
I went to an
news.
HBCU too.
Oh my goodness.
What are you talking about? My mom's an alumni of South Carolina State. So am I now. What are you talking about?
This guy here, man. This guy here.
I'm not making this up.
I believe you. I seen it.
That's
All right, Dr. Leonard McKelvey.
Right. Leonard.
Leonard.
You guys,
All
that's
right.
your front page news?
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Yee. Now, when we come back, who we kicking in when we come back? Who's joining us this morning, Yee?
My angel Cody is going to be joining us. And she's actually helped a lot of people who had life sentences in prison get released, and these for minor drug charges because of the 3-strike law.
All right, and we're going to talk to her when we come back. So don't move. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.